Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast. This episode's featured author is Dan Weedin. Dan Weedin is an experienced entrepreneur, thought leader, author, and award-winning speaker who has a passion for consulting, coaching, and mentoring other entrepreneurs and business professionals. He has the rare ability to translate his success in the insurance industry, public speaking, nonprofit world, and athletic coaching into applicable and transferable principles that dramatically improve the effectiveness of those business owners and executives he works with. Dan has written 4 books and hosts a nationally syndicated podcast called The Shrimp Tank. He lives outside of Seattle with his wife of 36 years, Barb, and their canine companion, Bella. Dan and Barb have 2 adult daughters and 4 incredible grandchildren. Hello again, and welcome back to the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, I have Dan Weedin. Dan, how you doing?
Ryan, I am doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm very honored.
No, thank you so much. I'm glad to have you here. In fact, for those who don't know, Dan and I go way back. I used to actually play all sorts of fun and games with his kids, so it's kind of cool to reconnect and chat about some stuff that we've been doing over the past however many years it's been. So this is really exciting for me too, I won't lie. So today we're here to talk about your book. Can you please tell everyone the title of the book you were talking about today?
Sure, Ryan. My book is titled Back Nine Walking. And as it might imply a little bit, there's a golf metaphor in there. Although I don't want to scare non-golfers off. I got plenty of other things in there, but we can talk a little bit more about why I called it that. But the book is called Back Nine Walking, and the subtitle is A Guide to Living Life Unleashed.
And so, what is just a quick synopsis on the Back Nine Walking?
So the synopsis is this, and you're not there yet. You're still on the front 9. I'll just say that. I'll lead off with that. But as I got over about the age of 45-ish, I started realizing that so many of us, people who have friends and colleagues and clients, we all seem to be dealing with similar type of life experiences, life events. It was everything from your children growing up and graduating high school and going to college and tuition, and then graduating college, to aging parents. My parents passed away, my dad, 2011, my mom in 2016, had to deal with assisted living, had to deal with dementia, had to deal with caregiving. And so there's so many different things that we who are in what I would just call the back 9 of life are going through, in addition to whether, I'm a business owner, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a person who works for another company, you have a business, you have a life to run. And I just felt like I had a message to give that talks about resilience, that talks about really kind of those shared situations and how to get through those. And I use golf. The reason I use golf is because for anybody who does play golf, there are hazards out there. There's sand traps, there's water, there's out of bounds. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we are dealt with over 18 holes, kind of like life. And then back 9 has some similarities. And in some of the writing that I was already doing, I was getting a lot of feedback from people. And they said, I can relate to this. Boy, I really needed to read that, And so I thought, here's an opportunity for me to put this into a book format so people can consume it that way.
So you said people discovered this writing. Did you put it in a blog or something like that where they could kind of read this?
You're a writer. You know how it is. I've had a newsletter going on since 2010, somewhere or actually I've had the newsletter going on longer, weekly newsletter. And I also have been writing it started out as the Kitsap Business Journal. It's now the Kitsap Sun. I have a monthly column on that. And I started, I don't want to say, I guess, experimenting a number of years ago with talking about things that I observed and that were happening in my life. And go figure, people kind of like that more than me talking about insurance or risk management or stuff like that. And so it started resonating. I started getting feedback, and it's like, oh, people like this. And so that's really where it came from, was from the work that I was doing with my newsletter and with my monthly business column.
Oh, okay, okay. And then so that after all that interest came, you're like, man, I guess I could make this into something more consumable, and
Right.
right there. So that's kind of what sparked the inspiration to write the back nine.
Correct.
Okay, okay, cool. Now, it's not just about golf, because on the front page, on the cover, there's a cute little Jack Russell Terrier,
Yeah.
and I think you call him Captain Jack.
Yeah.
Can you go into his part in the back
Yeah.
nine?
Yeah. So Captain, he's the late great Captain Jack. It's the last book he wrote with me. Passed away. In fact, we just passed the 1 year.
Mhm.
Captain Jack, kind of my soulmate. My wife would tell you that he and I had a lot in common, from the distraction and the energy and all of that. I used to take Jack for walks, and as he got older, it seemed like he got better in the back nine. It's like I had to prod him out the door, right? In the first half of the walk, if you saw us, you'd think I was kidnapping a dog. He didn't want to go, he wanted to go anywhere but where I wanted to go. But as soon as we hit the park and headed back for home, he was like on a mission. I used to say to him, man, you really play a back nine well. We're doing some back nine walking. That's where it came about.
Okay.
Well, the whole process of the trademark that I have a registered trademark, Ryan, called Unleashed. And I've used it for business now, I think since 2016. And I use it as part of the business services, keynote speeches, trainings that I do. I use the concept of being unleashed. And that has been around for a number of years. Well, Captain Jack helped me co-author Unleashed Leadership. He has an anecdote at the end of every chapter. People told me they like his work better than mine. They said he needed a raise. I said he gets free food, free rent, and free healthcare for life. I don't know what else he needs.
Yeah.
So it made sense that since Unleashed was born of a Jack Russell Terrier, and since the back nine walking was born from a Jack Russell Terrier, that he should take a major role in that. So yes, I apologize for the long answer, but that's how Captain Jack ended up on there, and it's his last work, and it's good stuff.
I thought it was very charming when I was going through, and I read, you have very nice sentiments and through the chapters, and then at the tail end you have some humor thrown in there with Captain Jack and his funny bits. And I do like that, he mentions being unleashed accidentally several times.
Yeah.
Oh, someone left the door open for me, so I went on a little exploration.
Right.
That was kind of a cool, just a little, like I said, way to sum up everything.
The interesting thing, and what I try to do, Ryan, and I know you've read the book, is I try to insert commonalities. People know dogs or pets. They know kids, so there's a lot of stories about kids. A lot of them will know golf, and even if they don't know golf, I've got a client of mine who is an equestrian person, and she's not a golfer, but she'll tell me, yeah, the same holds true. You talked about this as relates to golf, but the same holds true here. So she's able to identify, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important in books that are, I guess, what I would consider a business book, where I'm telling a story, if we can find some commonality where somebody can put themselves in that situation and nod their head and said, yeah, I get that. That, I think, accelerates the opportunity for them to gain some extra value out of whatever the topic is.
No joke. And then, I like how, you said they can nod their head. That's mostly, yes, out of maybe some humor, but a lot of emotion comes from, there's a lot of emotion in business. There should not, in decision making, there shouldn't be, but there's a lot of emotion in business. If you get people to connect with people, because you're developing relationships in business. So if you can develop a great relationships, you have a trusting and hopefully very long lasting future relationship with that person.
Well, let me tell you, I think, and this is the world according to Dan. I think that business not being personal is a myth. I loved The Godfather. It's maybe my favorite movie of all time. But the whole thing is, it's not business. It's not personal. It's business, is a myth. Life is, everything's personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's personal. And whether you are an employer of people and needing to manage or lead them, whether you have coworkers that you've got to work with every day, whether you have clients and customers, everybody is personal. Everybody has a personal reason for being there. They're motivated personally, and the relationships, as you mentioned, are personal. Really quick aside, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are in the same situation as me when it came to aging parents. How do you work knowing that, hey, mom or dad is in this situation? I'm responsible. People don't always recognize that. Colleagues don't always recognize that, and there could be misunderstanding. So that whole personal part of what are people going through, where can I be of help? It's as much important in business as it is in the neighborhood.
You want them to invest emotionally with you so that they'll invest financially. I mean, that's
Right.
kind of how that's got to go, because trusting people with money, it's just like
Yeah.
trusting you with their life. I mean, around nowadays, I mean, really, if you lose $10,000 in something terrible in a bad investment because you trusted someone, you've done more than just lose money. You've now lost
Right.
either a client or a partner, or you name it. You name something.
Correct.
So very important stuff. Now, I love how you start off, because it's a back nine, so people might not know. It starts at the 10th hole. And
Right.
of course, it's funny. I look at the table of contents. I always look at the table of contents before I read anything, because I just want to get kind of a idea. I'm like, why the 10th hole? I don't golf very much, so that was one reason why I didn't understand it. But I love that you just dive right into it. You address that right from the beginning. The 10th. This is for people who might be on the back nine of their life. I really enjoyed that piece there. Just to touch on golfing, avid golfer for since you were younger. How?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was 13. I'm 58 now. So if we do quick math, it's about 45 years of golfing. I played high school golf
Okay.
for 4 years. I've been playing golf my whole life. And in fact, as we talk here today, I'm the boys golf coach at North Kitsap High School as kind of a little bit of a side hustle. And so golf has been a major part of my life. It's where I've hung out with friends. I find that golf has so many similarities to life, and it's everything from, in golf, unlike other sports, you have to call a foul on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be trusted. This is, one of the worst things you can do on a golf course is have somebody call you a cheater. It's worse than saying you're a bad golfer. And so there's opportunities for us to call fouls on ourselves. There are penalties put into place for mistakes that are made. Sometimes there's things out of our control that happen and we have to respond to. And then one of my favorites, and I think this was in the book, I have to remember, is you have to play the ball where it lies.
Yeah.
Right. And for anybody who's ever golfed and hears this, I'll say, yeah, I've hit some really great shots and I ended up someplace terrible. It wasn't my fault, but here I am. Well, you can't go take the ball out of there and say that wasn't fair and put it in the middle of the fairway. You're stuck playing it where it lies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's life. That's
It
life.
is.
That's business. And I believe, I don't believe we have a business life and a personal life. I believe we have a life. We come into situations that we have to be resilient. We have to be strategic. We have to think about, okay, how do I get back into play? How do I
Mm-hmm.
get out of this situation with the least amount of damage? Or how do I take advantage of opportunities that are presented with me? So that's why I used golf, because for me, and having played so many years, there's so many correlations to life.
Well, and just the fact that you have to play with integrity, rely on the honor system is a big thing. I guess just from what you're telling me, showing how you play a game, in this case, golf, will show you how you operate in things like just your day to day or business. Very important. So the mirror is very obvious. I love
Well,
how you.
Ryan, a few people probably heard of Arnold Palmer, right? Arnold Palmer, one of the great golfers and one of the great business people of all time. People don't really understand the length and breadth of his what he did from a business standpoint. But he said, "Look, I just give me 4 hours to play with somebody. I can tell you who they are
Yeah.
as a human. 4 hours on a golf course will reveal how you celebrate, how you deal with adversity, all of that, how you
Mm-hmm.
interact with others, relationships, things like that." And so I thought that's very, very true.
That makes a lot of sense. Cool. I'll circle back to what you said. it's worse to be called a cheater than be called a bad golfer.
Mhm.
And that makes sense in anything, because I can teach you how to be a better golfer, writer, whatever. I can't teach you integrity. You have to learn that. It's got to be deep down in you. Maybe it's from birth. I don't know. The whole nature versus nurture thing. That's a skill, a talent, something instinctual that needs to be a part of your everyday life.
And
And
if I can add one quick
yeah,
thing,
go
because
ahead.
there's part of this is in business, and I do coaching in business, and
Perfect.
you'd be surprised how many CEOs and business owners have to deal with identity and mistakes made. Look, we all make mistakes in life. I haven't met anybody who has been mistake free. We make mistakes in judgment. We make mistakes in a lot of different places. We have to forgive and forget it very quickly, because we have a shot to play.
Yeah.
And if we are not able to give ourselves grace and forgive, because that's a big deal when you're a lot of times people look at CEOs and business owners and think, oh, look where they're at. Hey, there's some identity crisis issues that a lot of them deal with, that they're not good enough, or they're going to make a mistake, or
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that. So, that was one of the things that resonated with a lot of people who, when I was starting to write the book, was, yeah, we make mistakes. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to move on, because if we obsess with it, the next shot's going to be bad.
And that's not just identity, how we are, but how we're perceived too. There are so many people I've talked to who, I work for a naval base, and I've had to teach, I'm an instructor. I've had to teach people who are pretty up there on the command chain. And I just go up there and teach like they're a normal person. I just look at them
Right,
like they put their pants on the same way I do.
right,
You jump in with both legs. No, okay. One pant at a time, one pant leg at
right.
a time. And it's just that they're going to have questions. They might know some stuff that other people don't. Just answer them honestly. They will take that, and they love that. Being honest is something that's gotten me very far. And I can say, hey, I honestly have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I just got here. People are happy to enjoy and endure that candid nature. But I will do my best to go get research. I will do my
Yep.
best to deal with my faults. If you're open about it, I found people are way happier to work with you, and they realize, hey, he's human. He's not this Superman
Right.
invincible person. He's not all knowing, all being. So it levels off for the worker and the boss. It kind of levels off. Oh, he's just a normal person like I am. We're just trying to get to the day.
Well, and I think I'll use a term, and comes into back to book writing, because we're talking about books, and
Yep.
it's whether you're speaking or whether you're writing books that are, maybe let's say business, nonfiction based. Vulnerability is a big thing, and you've read in the book that I wrote. I usually have a story that I start with. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it's about me, and sometimes you have to admit things, and you have to say that I failed, and so, because if you're always perfect, nobody's going to buy that,
Yeah.
and they also can't relate to that. And so, for anybody out there who's writing a nonfiction book, whether it be business related or self-help or whatever that is, vulnerability and the ability to say, yeah, I made mistakes. Here's what I learned from them, and here's what and actually, the first chapter, you may remember, talked about my middle name.
Yes.
And I won't go through that whole story. That's vivid in my mind. Back in the day when you couldn't change wedding invitations very quickly, having to admit to my soon-to-be wife and my mother that I had not been honest with about my middle name, and now I got wedding invitations going out to people. That was hard. That was a
Yeah.
that was a learning lesson that to this day, 37 years later, still resonates with me. So
Well,
I put that out there, and people laugh, and it's not laughing at me, but they're laughing at the situation, and
yeah.
they can relate because they've done something like that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just goes to show you that, we can't make all the mistakes, but good stories like that, where, yeah, it hurt at the time. We laugh at it now. It's memorable. It will make them think,
That's right.
okay, I'm not perfect, and this is funny, and it's going to help the guy behind me or the person behind me not make the same mistake, and maybe get a little further ahead a little faster, and they can now trust me and relate to me like, okay, this is a funny story. This is, they're human. This is great. So I really did enjoy the kind of self-defecating humor a little bit in there.
Yeah.
You have to be. And with putting yourself out there, it's so hard. It's so hard. Yet with business and like just with my books, mine are all fiction currently,
Right.
all fiction. I remember getting ready to release the book and my anxiety level was going through the roof because I'm like, I've had this held in the chest for so long. Only like half a dozen people know, and most of them are family. I'm going to release this out to the world. Was the most frightening thing. What if they don't like it? What if they find this glaring
Right.
hole in there? The beautiful thing is you can go, yep, made a mistake, pull that back, fix it, send it back out in the world again. You can do that, and allowing yourself to do that and saying it's okay, you're not perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, kind of helped me, alleviate some of that anxiety.
It's interesting, and it just popped in my head, Ryan. This is something I do tell clients. Nobody makes bad decisions. We make wrong decisions, but decisions that are made shouldn't be considered bad. They're either successful or they're learning opportunities. Kobe Bryant had the Mamba mentality. He said there is no failure. There's success and learning. And
Yes.
so I love the idea of there's no bad decisions. There's just wrong ones. And we work from there.
Yep, exactly. My boys just started doing wrestling, and that was a mantra of theirs too. You're going to go in there, you're either going to win or you're going to lose and learn something.
Right.
Like that is you're going to have an opportunity to learn something. And once we kind of beat that into their heads, because when you're young, losing's hard. Showing that you're a failure, you're not good at something is so traumatizing, terrifying to them. They have phobias of it. But when I was like, hey, what did you learn? Well, I learned that I need to work on my holds better. There you go. Let's go work on your holds. And I need to learn how I can, break out of this thing. Yes, exactly. And that's all it is. It's just about learning, opportunity, and growing. It's all it is about growth. Just to kind of circle back on your professional livelihood, there's some other books you've done too. You might briefly just at least shooting titles out for us.
Yeah. So the first one I ever wrote was a self-published. It was just called Unleashed. It was really at the beginning of when I started this whole concept of Captain Jack and Unleashed, and it was a compilation of some of my favorite newsletters. Well, that then went on. I wrote a book because I've been in the insurance and risk management industry. I wrote a book called Ensuring Success, which is really, it was just for insurance agents. The third book I wrote, though, was kind of the next step. It was commercially published, and it was called Unleashed Leadership. And really, that was when I started the whole process of taking the trademark and the concept of Unleashed and turning it into a business concept around leadership. Nice. And that was back, I think, in about 2017.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I was going to write any more books after that. I did a lot of writing. I do a lot of content creation. And it just dawned on me when I started getting this feedback, okay, it's time to do another one. And so I think it was 20. So it would have been 2020. I started writing it through the pandemic and all of that. Actually makes it a little bit easier to sit down and get a book written when you can't go anyplace, right?
No kidding. I was a 2020 author too.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And so yeah, those are the other books. A little bit more focused. The first one, I would say it was kind of a beta test, right? It was a beta test. The next two got commercially published. And this one, in today's day, I just got it out. I didn't want to deal with going through a publisher and all of that. I just wanted to get it out. Yeah. And that's what I did. And for any books I do in the future, I'll do the same way.
Yeah, I found that it kind of takes the pressure off in a way because you're not contractually, what do you call it? Obligated. Yeah, obligated to get this and that done because life happens. You got a family. Right. You want to get stuff done. It's like, oh, I'm tired today. I need to go take care of me. Or I've got the house needs this. I got to go take care of that. When you have a moment, you can then get your writing done and editing, whatever.
Right.
And it's just a lot nicer paced versus someone breathing down your neck. And I know from my experience, I do my best work when I don't have someone breathing down my neck, get things done. I definitely have the procrastination, speed through, but I always screw up somewhere and it's not a good product. So now, how long have you been a business owner for? Because when I knew you, I was very young. Yeah. But I believe you owned like the little gyms around here.
Oh gosh, that's going way
a long
back.
time ago.
Yeah. 90s. So I started my consulting practice in 2005.
Okay.
So I had
Okay.
been the little gym was one of those failed businesses where I learned a lot, Ryan. I
Okay.
learned a lot
Yeah.
about business and about running a business and whether I needed employees or not and all of that. So that did fail, but I learned a lot. And we stayed in Kitsap County, and I was an insurance agent for years. But at some point, the entrepreneurial bug was still within me. In 2005, I started my consulting practice, which now I guess this August would make that about 18 years
Good
that
job.
I've been doing
Congratulations.
that. It's morphed, and as you can imagine, just with the way the world has changed in the last 20 years, it's changed dramatically. I still do a lot of consulting and coaching. I also am doing much more content creation, and
Yes.
that's you and I talked about that heading in in kind of our pregame. I'm doing a lot
Uh-huh.
more content creation around videos, around around writing, because it's what I enjoy, and I like to be able to scale what I do a little bit more by doing that.
I was just going through your book here. I've got it open just for reference. In I believe it's the 15th hole, it talks about wealth. Can you kind of go into a bit about wealth? Because some people can think, oh, wealth, it means I have so much money, I can't even think about what to do with the money. But
Right.
what does wealth mean to you in this instance?
So if I remember correctly, and I always worry when people quote my own work to me that I might mess something up and and not say what I wrote. But in that chapter, I started out by saying, look, if this is not a money, I'm not a financial guy.
Yeah.
This is not You're not going to get some great tips on how to build money. You need to go to a good CPA, you need to go to a good financial planner, you need to have right insurance, all of that stuff, all right insurance, all of that stuff. But I really want to talk about the concept of wealth from us as humans. I have a beautiful, fantastic, great human as a life partner and wife. We've been married for 37 years, and that relationship is optimal to me. That's wealth. I have two beautiful daughters. That's wealth, and we're best friends. I mean, I know of so many people who are challenged with not being close to their children. We talk every day. In fact, we have little competitions with Wordle every day. So we're texting every day at some level.
Yeah.
And I see them constantly. I have four incredible grandchildren. And so, that's wealth. That is part of it. And there's relationships that play into that. And those have to be managed and taken care of. I've got great friends. I've been in Rotary. That's all wealth to me. The other wealth that I think that sometimes gets forgotten is that I believe that true wealth is discretionary time. You can always make another dollar, but you can't make another minute. And so true wealth is, putting yourself in a position, yes, financially, that you can say, I've got more time. And I'm not talking about retiring, Ryan. I'm never going to retire. I think that's the quickest way to death than anything else. But that you can be in control of your time. You can be
Mhm.
in control of how you spend your time, with whom you spend your time, and all of that. I think that maybe was where you were going with this. That's what I believe true wealth is. Yes, you have to have the financial, and it's important because you want to be able to have the means to live,
Right.
but you also need to have that valuable, for me, it's my wife and my kids and my grandkids and my friends and my clients, who many of them I consider friends, that we are able to have a really wonderful existence together and experience life together.
That's exactly where I was going with it. When I think of wealth, when I was younger, it definitely hit all the money. Just think, okay, that's
Right.
what it meant. So that's what I meant. Because you're looking at it literally when you're
Yeah.
younger.
Well,
My
it's all,
early
but
20s.
Ryan, it's also pushed on us that way.
Exactly, exactly. It wasn't until I went through and I burnt myself out nearly to death, so sick in bed because I had just worked an ungodly amount of hours, that I finally go, okay, my time is worth way more than I'm being paid for right now. I need to reevaluate what I'm doing. And I looked at everything going, why am I working? And I looked around like, wife, kids, a life for us. That is why I'm working. That is why I'm doing what I have to do. But you have to do it smart. You have to do it intelligently. You have to take that step back and fix the working too hard.
Well, and I'm
we're
going to
doing
give
it
you,
for a purpose.
something that you've done that I think is just really, really important. And it's part of the whole Unleashed mantra is
Mhm.
that you've written a book.
Yeah.
There, I forget the exact quote, but there was a quote that there's more unwritten books in graveyards than there are in libraries. Everybody has this like, I'm going to write a book, and it could be something like I'm going to start a podcast, I'm going to do whatever, I'm going to go on a trip somewhere, whatever that is.
Yep.
Too many times we as humans fall short of doing something because there's a fear of failure, there's a fear of judgment, there's a fear of what am I, how am I going to pay for that, whatever the case is. And
Exactly.
you went ahead and you wrote that book, and I know you're going to write more books
Yep.
because it's important to you. You
Yep.
love it. There's a passion there. You're going to be more fun to be around because you're getting to do those things, but you're also inspiring your children to
Right.
say, hey, take some risks, do things and that's wealth too,
Yes.
Ryan. That's a level of wealth that unfortunately I think more of us can do. And by the way, if there's a silver lining that's come out of this pandemic, that might be part of it. There are more and more people who said, okay, I'm gonna try something else.
Yeah.
What things are changing, I'm gonna do something else. And I think that came out of it as well.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked with that so many times that when there's a cataclysmic change, and apparently the word apocalypse does not necessarily mean the end of the world. It means a great change. And
Oh,
so
I
if we
didn't know
have a great change.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
When there's a great change, well, you have to be resilient. You have to change. You have to overcome to survive. Or in this case, to survive doesn't necessarily mean money. It can mean mental health. It can mean your passions. Anything. But thank you for talking about for the wealth. For those who have not seen his book yet, just go check it out. It's got so many different areas, spiritual. It talks about family life. It's a good coalescing between your hobbies, which of course we all love to do, your pets, your family, and just your business overall in a very nice, easy, consumable, and enjoyable way. So go check his book out, please, and thank you. Real quick, I want to circle to because I was reading your bio. You've done a lot of stuff in the time that we haven't seen each other. So
It's because I'm
it's
old now. That's part of it. Is I'm getting old. So anyway, sorry.
no, you're good. Well, I think it just shows that you want to grow and do stuff and explore, and that's the whole part of it. And like you said, you've failed a lot, but you've also won a lot too. So that's the game we play. You win a lot of golf, you lose a lot of golf.
Yep.
You probably lose more than you win. I mean, that's how
Mm-hmm.
I usually play golf. I'm usually the loser in golf. But whatever. But you still have. Hopefully, you're having fun and learning as you go. Now, it said you developed a speaking career also.
Yeah.
How's your speaking going?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I have done a lot of professional speaking. I've spoken in both all through North America and South America. I did a lot of speaking. I'd gotten down to Colombia, as you'll see in my book. I have a background there, so I was able to go down there and speak and visit families. I was doing a lot of speaking, and then the pandemic hit. So I'll say this: there's been a shift.
Yes.
I still will speak. In fact, I've got some coming up that I do still speak. However, more of my speaking now is podcasting. And as
Nice.
as you know, I have a podcast. It's a nationally syndicated podcast, entrepreneur podcast, called the Shrimp Tank Podcast. And I find that my professional speaking now is becoming more and more virtual. Whether it's creating YouTube videos, which I would say is speaking. I've got 4 LinkedIn learning courses. I consider that speaking. And so it's shifted. And
Mhm.
so as much as I enjoyed getting up in front of groups, and I still do, I'm not doing it as much. And it's not because I don't want to or have opportunities, but it's just different now.
And it's a little simpler too. You can do it from home, which is
Yep.
kind of nice. It's a little less stressful for travel and maybe a little less expensive, which is kind of nice. And
It
you can
is.
still make
Well,
the same impact. So
yeah, and one of the things that I learned through my LinkedIn learning courses is that people are consuming learning online, and that you can scale that from a
yeah,
business standpoint a little bit more.
yeah,
And the value of a course can last 3 or 4 years. You don't have to do it once instead of multiple times.
Right.
And so that's the area that I'm really going to. I did a lot more speaking back in the day, but you're right. There's travel, there's transportation costs, there's time. You talked
There's
about wealth and time. Okay, so I'm going to speak one day. I got to travel there. I mean, there's the 3-day commitment
yep.
to a 4-hour, event or even a keynote. So
Yeah.
things have just changed, and I think they're going to progressively continue to do that.
And I've seen more and more people professionally speak and share their craft and knowledge through virtual connections.
Right.
And I mean, myself, I've taken several classes from the University of Washington and other Navy learning and whatnot to better my job. And it's just going to continue. They're not stopping. They're just getting more and more. So
Yep.
the access is really nice for those who can't necessarily pay to travel or to attend things. One more thing on your business career here. I saw that $1 million consultant hall of fame.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, but I wanted you to kind of chat about that real fast, if you would.
Yeah, I'm never going to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so hopefully this will at least feed that, or the Golf Hall of Fame. I'm not this will feed that. So I've been very fortunate to have some really good mentors and coaches early in my consulting career, and one of those was and still is a gentleman by the name of Alan Weiss. Alan has written somewhere around 70, 80 books on solo practitioner consultants. He's created his whole thing is $1 million consulting. He's written a book called that. He's created programs through that. And so I got involved with Alan right out of the gates. And I was fortunate when he created his $1 million consulting hall of fame for consultants who he recognized as leaders in their field. And so I was fortunate back, I think in 2012, to have, Alan included me in that class. And so I was very, very honored to have that.
That's super cool. And I'm assuming you're still consulting and doing all that
Oh,
fun
I
stuff.
am. I'm still
Okay.
consulting. I'm still coaching. I
Excellent.
found a little bit more coaching, and it's really around leadership and relationships and creating culture.
Mhm.
Because in the end, that's part of risk management as well. I've often, people think of insurance and all of that. That's kind of the unsexy part of it. But what you've heard people say, "Oh, I got a fire to put out." Well, it's not a real fire.
Mhm.
And if we can work on the culture of a company, the leadership of a company, the relationships, we don't have those fires because you're more likely to have those in a real one.
Yeah.
And so I work around that area as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'll say congratulations to all of
Thank
that
you.
you've accomplished and you've done and you continue to do. So, and it's amazing to actually hit you up and chat with you about all this great stuff you're doing. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. My pleasure. Just two questions before we wrap up. So at the end of the day, what do you want people to get from the back nine walking?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's interesting you asked that, Ryan, because I think as authors, we all want to have an end result, right? We all want somebody to read a book and have an end result. So what I'd like them to be able to do is to say, you know what, I'm gonna look at my life and I'm gonna give myself some grace for whatever perceived failures I've had. I'm also going to give that same grace to others that I may need to, and I'm going to come out of whatever fence I've created and unleash myself and do things while I can to the best I can and live my life to the fullest because it's the only life I've got. It's the only
Yeah.
life I'm going to be given. And I just want them to be able to say, hey, I'm willing to take risks. I'm going to overcome fears. They're going to be there. And I'm just going to live the best and most enjoyable and rewarding life I can. So
Mhm.
I hope that that's what they'll take out of it.
I hope so too. And it sounds like that's exactly where you were heading. So I think you hit the nail on the head or hit
Thank
the
you.
ball in the hole or however,
We got the
whatever.
ball in the hole. That's good. I took a
Okay.
few strokes, but they got in there.
There you go. That works. See, I did. It did. I'm usually miss. I was a practice swing. Let me try again. So lastly, where can people get copies of Back Nine Walking?
Well, I have a website, back9walking.com. That is the most direct route to get it. They can get a signed copy there. And for anybody listening who puts down, when they send it, puts down in the notes that they heard me here, I will send a copy of Unleashed Leadership at no additional cost. So if they go in and they say, "Hey, I heard you on Ryan's Ryan's podcast," I will send a copy of Unleashed Leadership as well, so they can get more Captain Jack
Awesome.
on there.
Well, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this, and go get a copy of his book and, listen to what he has to say and Captain Jack has to say, because they're both very insightful. Some are funny. Captain Jack's got some humorous things to say in there as well. Dan, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to meet with me, talk prior and talk now during all your business wonderfulness and other accomplishments. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Ryan, it's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And again, if you're doing any more books in the future, I would happy to have you back on as a future.
You'll be the first person I tell. How about that?
I love it. I'm honored. Excellent. So great. All right, everybody. Thank you. And as always, stay mighty and keep reading.
Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.